I knew something was off the second I saw her pastel pink cardigan marching up my driveway like she owned the place. "Mr. Preston?" she called out in that nasal, clipped tone that could make a dog's ears flatten. "We need to talk. Now." Her name was Cheryl Kensington, 50-something, bleach blonde bob, always wore some combination of pearls and superiority complex. Cheryl was the HOA vice president of our neighborhood here in Willow Creek Estates, and she treated the role like she was running the Pentagon. Her favorite pastimes included issuing fines for lawn lengths and sending passive-aggressive emails about trash bin placement. I was standing on my porch with a wrench in one hand and a busted sprinkler valve in the other. I squinted at her. "Cheryl, it's Saturday. You got a clipboard emergency again." She sniffed, ignoring my sarcasm like always. "Don't play coy, Mr. Preston. I'm here about your security cameras." That made me pause. I'd put them up a month ago after someone kept leaving HOA violation notices on my door at 2 in the morning. Not in the mailbox. Not emailed. Literally taped to my front door with painter's tape like a message from the mafia. My cameras were motion activated and I'd caught some raccoons, a few stray cats, and one blurry figure in a hoodie I couldn't quite make out. Until now, I hadn't shown anyone. "Why?" I asked, crossing my arms. "Lose your dog? Or just trying to pad your reality show drama reel?" Her eyes narrowed. "There was vandalism last night. The community bulletin board by the clubhouse? Someone spray painted over next month's HOA meeting notice. You have a camera that faces the street. I'm demanding you turn over the footage. Immediately." I blinked. "You demanding something from me doesn't really mean I have to do it, Cheryl. I'm representing the Willow Creek HOA," she snapped. "And per our bylaws, Section 4, subsection." Well, I'm sure a responsible homeowner like you wouldn't want to be seen as obstructing an investigation. I could tell she was bluffing. There was no way the bylaws gave her the right to dig through my private surveillance footage. But I didn't say no. Not yet. Instead, I said, "Sure. Let me pull it up. Want to come inside?" "Might take a minute." Cheryl hesitated, probably weighing the horror of stepping into a non-compliant home, but curiosity won out. She followed me into the living room where I flipped open my laptop and pulled up the feed from the previous night. The footage was clear. High def. I'd installed a nice little system after the third time someone keyed my truck. I fast-forwarded to around midnight, hit play, and watched the screen. What we saw wasn't a hoodie-wearing teenager or some random vandal. It was Cheryl. Wearing black yoga pants, a hoodie pulled halfway up, and sneakers that glowed under the infrared. She crept up the sidewalk, looked both ways, and walked right across my front lawn, cutting through it like it was a hiking trail before veering off across the street toward the clubhouse. I paused the footage. "You want to explain why you were trespassing through my yard at midnight?" I asked. Her face went pale. For a second, I thought she might actually faint. "That's not me," she said too quickly. I zoomed in. The face was grainy, but you could clearly see the long necklace she always wore, the one with the little gold tree charm. Her signature, she called it in that last HOA newsletter. "Sure looks like you," I said. "Want to keep watching?" She didn't answer. I hit play again. Cheryl walked to the community bulletin board, pulled something from her handbag, and sprayed over the meeting notice. Not sloppily either. Just one line, right through the date. Then she pulled out a new flyer from her purse and tacked it up. The camera didn't catch what it said, but I didn't need to. She was planting something. Framing someone, maybe. Or screwing with the schedule so she could claim an emergency vote. Classic Cheryl. I turned to her. "So, what exactly am I obstructing again?" Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. She backed toward the door like I had a baseball bat in my hand. I must have been sleepwalking," she finally said. "I have a condition. It's documented. I should go." "Oh no, Cheryl. You came here demanding footage. You're getting all of it." She bolted out the door. I stood there for a second, stunned, then burst out laughing. Sleepwalking vandalism? That was a new one. I downloaded the footage to a USB stick and slid it into my desk drawer. I knew Cheryl wouldn't let this go. She couldn't. It wasn't in her DNA. And I was right. 2 days later, I got a notice from the HOA. A formal complaint. According to the letter, my security cameras were oriented in a manner that invades neighboring privacy and would need to be removed within 7 days or I'd face a fine of $500 a day. The signature at the bottom? Cheryl Kensington, acting HOA president. I almost choked on my coffee. That's when I knew this wasn't just about a bulletin board. She was trying to erase the evidence. But if she thought a piece of paper was going to scare me, she had no idea who she was messing with. I'm Jonah Preston. I work in IT security by day and I've spent the last 10 years eating bureaucrats for breakfast. So I got to work. First thing I did was call my buddy Nathan, a lawyer who owed me a favor. Then I pulled every HOA bylaw I could find, printed them out, and highlighted every section about privacy, surveillance, and community-accessible areas. And then I did something Cheryl would never expect. I invited my neighbors over. Not all of them. Just a few I trusted. I showed them the footage. I didn't editorialize. Just played the clip and let them watch. Their reactions ranged from stunned silence to outright laughter. My next move? I filed an official complaint to the HOA board. Not Cheryl, she was only acting president while the real one, Tom, was on vacation in Florida. I addressed it to the full board, complete with time-stamped footage, printed screenshots, and a notarized statement of what Cheryl had demanded from me. I included a formal request for an emergency meeting, not only to challenge the fine but to vote on Cheryl's removal. And that's when things really started to heat up. 3 days after I submitted the complaint, a plain manila envelope showed up on my doorstep. No return address. Just my name in tight, all-caps lettering. I opened it cautiously, half expecting glitter or maybe a dead squirrel, considering Cheryl's mood lately. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It was a revised agenda for the upcoming HOA meeting. The date had been moved up by 2 weeks and the location changed from the clubhouse to a private residence Cheryl's. That wasn't just irregular. That was completely outside protocol. HOA meetings were required by their own charter to be held in a public space accessible to all members. A private home didn't qualify unless a unanimous board vote was recorded, and even then, proper notice had to be given. This wasn't notice, it was a power grab. I called Nathan. She's trying to stack the deck, I said, pacing across my garage while my neighbor's dog barked at a squirrel somewhere nearby. Of course she is, Nathan replied. She knows the board's split. She's trying to hold an unofficial meeting and steamroll it before the others get wind. We can't let that happen. You don't need to stop the meeting, he said. You need to document it. If she breaks quorum rules or votes on anything outside a sanctioned session, it's invalid. But if you catch it on record, that's grounds to remove her under your own HOA's Article 11. I didn't need to be told twice. That night, I went over to Megan and Dave's place, neighbors from 3 doors down. Megan was a nurse who worked graveyard shifts and Dave ran a mobile mechanic service out of his garage. Both were no-nonsense types who'd clashed with Cheryl in the past. When I explained what was going on, Megan didn't hesitate. I didn't work 3 doubles last week, so she can hijack the HOA and fine us for our flower beds, she said, tying her hair back. Dave opened a cooler and handed me a root beer. She's got her claws in a few of the new board members. If this goes through, she'll be able to pull funds without approval. She's already falsifying meeting notices, I said. I've got the footage to prove it. We're going, Megan said. And we're bringing receipts. The day of the meeting, I parked 2 houses down from Cheryl's place. Her driveway was packed with cars, all newer board members. I assumed. A few others were parked along the curb, some of them idling like they weren't sure if they should actually go inside. I walked up with Megan and Dave on either side of me. I'd brought a small GoPro clipped to my jacket, nothing obvious, but enough to capture audio and video. Nathan had coached me through the legal requirements. As long as I was physically present and not in a private bedroom or bathroom, I could record without announcing it. Cheryl opened the door. Her expression tightened the moment she saw us. This is for board members only. The agenda says it's a community meeting, Megan replied. And you sent it to residents. You weren't invited. You sent it to her mailbox, I said. That's an invitation in writing. Cheryl's nostrils flared, but she stepped aside. Inside, her living room had been rearranged to resemble a classroom. Folding chairs in rows, a whiteboard near the fireplace, and a table with a stack of typed papers that looked suspiciously like pre-written resolutions. A few attendees glanced up nervously as we entered. One man near the back whispered something to the woman beside him, who responded with a visible eye roll. Cheryl clapped her hands. "Let's begin." She launched into a speech about streamlining community governance and eliminating redundancy in oversight protocols. It was the kind of language designed to confuse and bore people into submission. Then she passed around a resolution labeled Motion 4C. I took a copy and read it. It gave the acting president Cheryl unilateral authority to approve fines under $1,000 without board approval. It also authorized the reallocation of discretionary maintenance funds to urgent matters as determined by the acting president. Megan leaned over. She's trying to write herself a blank check. Dave didn't say anything. He just started photographing every page with his phone. Cheryl moved to call a vote. That's when I stood up. Before we vote on anything, I said we need to confirm whether this meeting meets quorum. Cheryl's voice went sharp. Mr. Preston, you are not recognized by the chair. This isn't a courtroom, Cheryl. You can't gavel me into silence. Our HOA charter requires a full quorum and a public venue. This is your living room, and you never got board approval to move the meeting here. That makes the session invalid. Someone near the front nodded. Another leaned forward, interested now. Cheryl flushed. I have the right to convene emergency sessions in extraordinary circumstances, only with written notice to all board members and confirmation of quorum. Did you notify Tom? Tom was the actual HOA president, currently on vacation in Naples with his family. I texted him that morning. He hadn't heard a word about the meeting. Cheryl didn't answer. I pulled out a printout. Here's the email from Tom. He's unaware of any emergency session and explicitly stated no vote should occur in his absence. The room shifted. Several people now looked uncomfortable. One of them, a woman named Sandra who worked in accounting, stood up slowly. This doesn't feel right, she said. I thought this was just to discuss vandalism. Nope, Dave said. She's trying to give herself control over the HOA's checkbook. Cheryl tried to recover. We're simply voting to streamline procedures. Nothing will be finalized until it goes through the normal review. You just said we were ratifying the resolutions tonight, I replied. It's on video. Her eyes flicked to the GoPro clipped to my jacket. She hadn't noticed it before. This meeting is over, she said sharply. No, Megan said, stepping forward. This farce is over. The real meeting's happening next Tuesday, the one on the official calendar at the clubhouse with the full board present. And I'll be there. So will the rest of us. People began standing. Chairs scraped the hardwood floor. Someone muttered that they should have brought popcorn. As we left, Cheryl stood frozen in the middle of her living room, fists trembling at her sides. Outside, Sandra caught up to us. I didn't know she was doing this. She told us it was just to discuss neighborhood safety. She doctored the bulletin board notice to change the date. I said, I've got the tape. Sandra's eyes widened. That's fraud. She's doubling down, Megan said. We need to hit back hard. She's also trespassed on private property, I added, and tampered with official documentation. Sandra hesitated, then pulled out her phone. I'm calling Officer Brandt. He's the community liaison for our precinct. If she's tampering with HOA records, that's criminal. Back home, I forwarded the footage and documentation to Nathan, who filed a formal report with the city's Housing Commission. Sandra's report to Officer Brandt added fuel to the fire. By Monday morning, Cheryl was under investigation for falsifying HOA records and unlawful assembly of an unsanctioned board meeting. The police didn't arrest her not yet, but a subpoena was issued for her digital correspondence and HOA communications. That night, I got a call from Tom. He'd just gotten back from Florida and was furious. She used my name on that revised agenda, he said. That's forgery. I've got the footage. Everything backed up. Good. I'm calling an emergency meeting. A real one. She's done. I leaned back in my chair, watching the playback of Cheryl creeping through my front yard again. Hoodie pulled tight, that ridiculous necklace bouncing with each hurried step. She tried to play queen of the neighborhood. But now the board and the law were pulling out the foundation under her throne. The community clubhouse buzzed with quiet tension as neighbors filtered in that Tuesday evening. It was the first official HOA meeting since Tom returned from Florida, and this time every chair in the room was filled. Even the usual no-shows, the ones who normally couldn't be bothered to weigh in on shrub height regulations, were here tonight. News had traveled fast. Cheryl had tried to pull a fast one, and now the neighborhood wanted answers. Tom stood at the front, arms folded, jaw tight. He wasn't a loud man by nature, but he didn't need to be. His presence alone commanded attention. Retired firefighter, 40 years in the neighborhood, the kind of guy who still mowed his own lawn and waved to every dog walker. "All right, folks," he began, voice low but carrying. "We've got a lot to get through tonight. I'm invoking Article 9, Section 3, which allows for immediate board review in the case of misconduct by an acting officer. That would be Cheryl Kensington." A ripple of murmurs moved through the crowd. Cheryl sat near the front, lips pursed, shoulders squared. She wore a pale blue blazer tonight, like she'd dressed for court. Her usual air of superiority had cracked just enough to reveal something underneath: fear, maybe, or the early stages of panic. Tom continued, "Before we proceed, I've invited Officer Brandt to sit in. He's not here to interfere, just to observe. We've received multiple complaints regarding irregularities within the HOA. Depending on what's revealed tonight, further action may be taken." Officer Brandt, a tall man with a face like carved sandstone, nodded once from his seat near the exit. He didn't say a word, just watched. I stood when Tom asked me to present. My heart thudded as I walked up, a USB drive in one hand and a printed packet in the other. Megan and Dave sat nearby, stone-faced. I plugged the drive into the projector and brought up the footage. No commentary, no preamble. Just the raw, time-stamped video of Cheryl stepping across my lawn. Hoodie up, necklace unmistakable, heading straight for the bulletin board. There was no shuffle of disbelief this time, no gasps or murmured speculation, just dead silence as the footage played out. When it ended, I turned to face the room. I didn't show this to accuse anyone without evidence. But what you just saw speaks for itself. What followed was a series of actions that attempted to manipulate this community's decision-making process, including a falsified meeting notice and an unsanctioned vote. I've submitted all of this to the HOA board along with supporting documentation. Officer Brandt has a copy as well. Tom nodded. "Thank you, Jonah. You may sit." Cheryl stood up before anyone could say another word. "This is absurd," she said, voice sharp and brittle. "I was following protocol as best I could under difficult circumstances. You all know how chaotic things have been since Tom left. I simply tried to keep things moving. I didn't vandalize anything. I updated a posting that had outdated information." "You didn't notify the board," Sandra said from the back. "You didn't even tell us you were changing the agenda." "I emailed everyone," Cheryl snapped. "If you didn't read your inbox, that's not my fault." "That's not true," Tom cut in. "I checked with every board member. Not one of them received that agenda. And more importantly, why were you sneaking around at midnight if it was official business?" Cheryl's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Tom turned to Officer Brandt. "You've reviewed the footage?" "I have," Brandt replied, voice even. "And I've also reviewed the HOA's charter, bylaws, and the city's ordinances regarding private property and public notices. What happened here goes beyond internal misconduct. We're now looking into potential charges of trespassing, tampering with official communications, and unauthorized use of HOA funds." Cheryl's head snapped toward him. "That's outrageous. You don't even have proof of." "We do," Brandt interrupted. "Your email server logs were subpoenaed this morning. We've already confirmed a gap in your communications during the time you claimed to notify the board." "That's obstruction, Mrs. Kensington." Her hands trembled, barely perceptible. "You can't do this. I've served this community for 15 years. You're going to ruin my reputation over a mix-up." "No," Tom said. "You did that yourself." Then he reached into the folder at his side and pulled out a motion for immediate suspension. "We're voting now. Not to punish you. To protect this neighborhood from further abuse of power." The vote wasn't close. Out of 12 board members, 10 voted in favor. Sandra abstained, clearly rattled. Only one vote supported Cheryl, her neighbor from across the street, who looked like he regretted it the second he raised his hand. The motion passed. Tom didn't gloat. He didn't even look satisfied. Just tired. "We'll be appointing an interim vice president at next month's meeting," he said. "Until then, all decisions will be made by full board vote. Cheryl, you're relieved of all duties. Effective immediately." She didn't argue, didn't shout, just stood there for a moment too long, like she was waiting for someone to stand up and protest on her behalf. No one did. She left without another word. After the meeting, people lingered outside the clubhouse longer than usual. Not in tense clusters, but in small conversations, neighbors reconnecting over what had just happened. It was like the fog had lifted. Megan leaned against the railing, arms crossed, watching the parking lot clear. "She's not done," she said. "No," I agreed. "But neither are we." Dave walked up, holding his phone. City Housing Commission just posted a bulletin. They're opening an inquiry into Willow Creek's HOA accounting practices. Cheryl's name is all over the last 4 years of discretionary spending. I glanced at Tom, who was closing up the clubhouse. "He'll need help sorting through it." "Already on it," Megan said. "I've got 5 nurses who've been itching to audit something ever since the hospital switched software. This'll be therapeutic." A week later, subpoenas started arriving. Cheryl's home office was searched under warrant. Several ledgers went missing, but digital backups filled in the gaps. Turns out she'd been funneling maintenance funds into a community engagement budget, one that paid for catered events at her house, personal landscaping, and even a weekend conference in Scottsdale that, according to hotel logs, no one else attended. Charges were filed. Not just trespassing, but fraud and misuse of HOA funds. Cheryl was arrested quietly one morning, no fuss, no spectacle. Just a cruiser in her driveway and a neighbor's porch light catching the red-blue flash in the early dawn. The neighborhood changed after that. Slowly, then all at once. People started showing up to meetings regularly. The bulletin board, once ignored, became a real hub with community events, yard sale dates, even a lost and found corner. Tom stayed on as president, but now he had helped Megan join the board and Dave volunteered as treasurer. I built a digital portal for the HOA with public access to all budgets and meeting notes. And me? I left my cameras up, of course. Not because I expected trouble, but because I'd learned something. Sometimes justice doesn't come with a gavel or a badge. Sometimes it comes with a timestamp, a clear lens, and the courage to say no more. Not here. Not again. 3 weeks after Cheryl's removal, the neighborhood had settled into a kind of cautious optimism. There was still tension in the air, not fear anymore, but anticipation. Like we were waiting for the other shoe to drop. And it did. Not in the way anyone expected. It came in the form of a certified letter. Delivered by hand, signature required. I was elbow deep in the engine of my old Chevy when the mail carrier walked up and held it out without a word. The envelope was stiff, the kind of paper that screamed legal. Inside was a court summons. Apparently, Cheryl had filed a civil suit against the HOA board and me, specifically claiming defamation, unlawful surveillance, and emotional distress resulting from digital harassment. It was absurd on every level. But the part that chilled me wasn't the suit itself. It was the attached affidavit. She wasn't acting alone. The affidavit included a statement from someone named Alan Brenshaw, listed as former HOA compliance consultant. The name rang no bells, but when I sent the name to Nathan, he called me back within minutes. "This guy's trouble," he said. "He's been involved in multiple HOA corruption cases across the state, always behind the scenes. He's the one they bring in when they want things to look legitimate on paper. What's he doing in our case? Trying to clean up Cheryl's mess. Or bury it. I sat back on the tailgate and took a long breath. You're saying this goes beyond her? I'm saying she might have been the face, but she wasn't the only one with their hands in the pot. That night, I met with Tom, Megan, and Dave at the clubhouse. Sandra joined us too, visibly rattled but determined. I laid everything out from the court filing to Brenshaw's involvement. No one said anything for a long time. Then Megan spoke. She was moving money around for years. Someone had to be helping her. This guy probably cooked the books. Dave nodded. We need someone to go through the records line by line. Sandra pulled out a flash drive. I already did. She plugged it into the projector, and the screen lit up with spreadsheets, thousands of transactions over the past 4 years. But she had flagged specific entries. Payments to shell companies, invoices for services that were never rendered, and even recurring transfers labeled as community development grants that led nowhere. She created fake vendors, Sandra explained. Payments went out every quarter. I traced 2 of them to P.O. boxes registered to a company called Larkside Solutions. And? Tom asked. They don't exist. But Alan Brenshaw is listed as a consultant for a property management group in the same building. The room went silent again. We need to take this to the DA, I said. Tom looked at me, jaw tightened. We will. But we're going to do it right. The next morning, we met with Detective Kwan from the Financial Crimes Division. Officer Brandt had already briefed him on the surface-level vandalism and misuse charges. But what we brought was something else entirely. Kwan leaned over the table, scanning the documents with the kind of expression that said he'd seen worse, but not by much. This is organized fraud, he said. You've got paper trails, false vendors, shell accounts, and attempted retaliation through a lawsuit. That's criminal conspiracy and wire fraud at minimum. Can you bring them in? Megan asked. Kwan tapped the table slowly. Not yet, but I can get a search warrant for Cheryl's financials and we'll pull Brenshaw's phone records. If he's been coordinating with her, we'll find it. We left the precinct with more than a little adrenaline. It felt like we were finally pulling back the curtain on something that had infected the neighborhood for years. But Cheryl wasn't done playing. 2 days later, every board member, myself included, received subpoenas for deposition. Brenshaw's legal team had filed an emergency motion to delay the criminal investigation, citing pending civil litigation that could influence public perception. Nathan wasn't surprised. They're trying to muddy the waters, he told me. If they can claim you're retaliating against Cheryl for filing a lawsuit, they can spin it like she's the victim. It's a stalling tactic. So what do? We hit back with a countersuit. Fraud and embezzlement. And we do it before they can get a judge to freeze the investigation. By week's end, the countersuit was filed. Nathan coordinated with the DA to share all our evidence, and within 72 hours, the judge approved a full forensic audit of the HOA's finances, past and present. Cheryl's accounts were frozen. So were those linked to Brenshaw. And then the bombshell dropped. Detective Kwan called me directly. We got into Brenshaw's laptop, he said. He kept notes. Detailed logs of every neighborhood. He's done this to 11 total. Willow Creek is just the latest. Are the others involved? Not anymore. He bled them dry and moved on. But this time we've got him mid-scheme. That same night, Cheryl was arrested. Not for trespassing. Not for vandalism. But for conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction of justice, and falsified financial reporting. Brenshaw was picked up the next morning at a golf course outside of town. He didn't resist, just handed over his phone and asked for his lawyer. The news broke within hours. Local media ran the story on every channel. HOA scandal rocks Willow Creek, the headline read. Cheryl's mugshot was everywhere. Residents who'd once defended her now distanced themselves in record time. At the next board meeting, the clubhouse was standing room only. Tom addressed everyone. We've been lied to, manipulated, stolen from, but that ends now. We have a new budget, a new treasurer, and full transparency. No more closed-door decisions. No more secret agendas. Applause rose. Real, honest applause. When it died down, Tom turned to me. Jonah, you started this. You protected your home, stood up when it mattered, and never backed down. We owe you a lot more than thanks. I didn't say anything right away. I didn't need to. But I looked around that room at the faces of people who'd once been just neighbors, now something closer to allies, and I realized something. We'd won. Not just the case. We'd taken back our community. Cheryl and Brenshaw both took plea deals. Cheryl got 2 years probation, a hefty fine, and a permanent ban from holding any HOA or city administrative position. Brenshaw wasn't so lucky. With 11 neighborhoods worth of fraud under his belt, he was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. Nathan refused to take a dime for the case. Said it was the most satisfying legal battle he'd had in years. He even asked me to help him build a website tracking HOA abuse cases statewide. Said people needed to know they weren't alone. As for me, I still worked from home in IT security. Still had my cameras. Still mowed my lawn on Sunday afternoons. But now I did it with a quiet pride. Because when someone tried to twist rules into weapons, when they used power to intimidate instead of serve, we stood up. And we didn't just fight back. We made sure they'd never do it again.